This is Dr. Paul Thomlinson from Compass Health Network, and I'm doing a continuing series on what we can learn from science, the behavioral sciences and evidence-based psychology in particular, to help us deal with the COVID-19 crisis with grace and humanity. This one's called Domestic Violence in the Time of COVID-19. A recent New York Times article indicates another public health problem is compounding the COVID crisis, reporting that, quote, mounting data suggests that domestic abuse is acting like an opportunistic infection, flourishing in the conditions created by the pandemic, unquote. Previous research tells us that intimate terrorism, which is a term many experts prefer to domestic violence, increases whenever families spend more time together, such as during holidays and vacations. Whenever I have hard questions about things like this, I have the luxury of access to my longtime friend and favorite family psychologist, Dr. Joe Hulgus. Joe teaches at Missouri State University and maintains a private practice. We were able to do an interview from our respective homes, and I have edited the audio from our Q&A for brevity here. So, Joe, what do you make of this? Why are we seeing this disturbing rise in domestic violence, do you think?
First, let me thank you, Paul, for having me on your podcast. To address your question, it is disturbing, but it's not clear to me whether this is a rise in domestic violence or just making an existing problem worse because of the close quarters folks are in.
Right. So that's always a question when we see increases in any problem reported. Is it an actual increase, or is it just that more people are reporting it, etc.? As you say, there's the question of whether isolation is making an existing problem worse, which I'm sure is often the case here. Isolation seems to make many pre-existing mental, emotional issues worse. Current circumstances seem to provide ideal conditions for abuse to happen, especially if there's already a tendency toward that in the relationship, as you point out. I think it seems to play into the hands of abusers who tend to promote isolation from friends, family, from jobs, constant surveillance, strict, detailed rules for behavior, and etc. It's weird in a way because home isolation is essential to fighting COVID, but certainly gives more power to domestic abusers. And the crisis has also disrupted support networks, etc., making it more difficult for victims to get help or escape. So we agree that there's reason for concern. And the next question, and I know there are no easy answers here, but what can be done to prevent domestic violence when folks are in such close quarters these days?
Part of the problem may be that the patterns of abuse are long-standing, and so changing them, especially under these circumstances, may be pretty tough. There are things that people can do that will decrease the tension. As much as possible, get a little space, just breathe. Don't always take things personally, because things that feel like a slight may simply be misunderstanding. Try to give others the benefit of the doubt. These are general things that can help, but again, with long-standing problems, there's probably not a quick fix. But the majority of folks where there might be increased tensions can benefit from doing some of these things. Some simple things that can help are to listen more than talk, to make sure that you understand what it is that somebody's trying to say to you, to make I statements to claim what you're saying as opposed to projecting blame or whatever on someone else. Which surely is the quickest way to get somebody's hackles up. As long as everybody understands, it's okay to step away, to take sort of a little time out, to catch your breath, to compose yourself a little bit so that when you come back, you can respond a bit more reasonably to your partner or whoever you're talking to. For this to work, however, like I said, people have to understand that the other person is not disappearing, but they are taking a break. Because almost inevitably, one partner in a relationship wants to address things immediately, and the other wants to wait. And so if the one that needs a few minutes is the one that wants to wait, and they step away, their partner might interpret that as disappearing or not addressing things, and so it may escalate tensions.
I think you're right on. Certainly long-standing patterns of abuse are not amenable to quick fixes. And, of course, anyone who's in danger of being physically harmed should take whatever actions necessary to get themselves to safety. it's an understatement to say that that's even more difficult now than ever. But I appreciated the positive and proactive strategies that you mentioned. And so my last question in a related vein is, what recommendations would you make to families who are cooped up and want to have the most conflict-free time possible?
So I know that everybody would like to have no conflict at all. Unfortunately, I'm of the opinion that that's a pipe dream. In fact, and this is my view and not shared by everybody, but I believe that some degree of conflict actually creates opportunities for us, because intimacy is built on bumping into some of those things and being able to resolve them. So to avoid some conflicts, it's helpful to, again, do things like take a step back, take a breath, count to 3 before you respond if things get too heated. Postpone for a few minutes, but say, let's come back in 3 minutes and try to address this again. Seek to listen more than to talk, and to see that you can really hear what somebody's trying to tell you and clarify with them. So reflect back what you hear and see if that's what they're really trying to say. Focus on the feelings that are there, because my experience is, even though some might disagree, my experience is that people generally have really good motives, even in conflict situations. They want good things. They want to resolve something. They want to move things forward. They want to help somebody and so forth. And so if you can assume at times that that good motive is actually there, even if you're not totally convinced of it, then that softens the blow of things sometimes. But you can use conflicts, like I said, to help move the relationship forward. If you work hard to try to understand and not project blame, but look at responsibility, who's responsible for which dance steps, right? Then it is possible to actually grow as a result of these hard times. I hope that's been helpful.
As always, Joe, you're very helpful, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience with us as we seek to inspire hope and promote wellness in these difficult times.